Hello, I'm Robert Martinez, State Historian of New Mexico, and this is New Mexico History in 10 Minutes. Well, the year is 1540, and Francisco Vasquez de Coronado and his expedition have reached New Mexico. It is a quasi-business, military, and religious exploration, and it doesn't go well. We know that Fray Marcos de Niza had reported in 1539 that there was gold up here in New Mexico. So when the Spanish soldiers got here, they were not very happy. They were actually quite angry. And interestingly enough, Fray Marcos de Niza came on the expedition. This begs the question, why did he say what he did? Was he a liar, a scoundrel? Was he trying to trick people, or did he believe he saw gold? We don't know, but he came on the expedition and the soldiers wanted to kill him. Um, Nevertheless, they were here and they were determined to make their journey worthwhile. Um, we have to remember this was a business venture and it was also quite awesome. I mean, we have to imagine these Spanish conquistadores wearing armor, riding horses, with hundreds of Native American allies with them, Mexican Indian warriors. There were women on the expedition and Africans as well. The Pueblos likely were fascinated, uh, maybe in shock a little to see people and animals they'd never seen before. Um, Nonetheless, this was not a successful venture for Coronado and the people who had come from the south. So ultimately, what they start to do is they start to push their weight around and they want to find mineral wealth that really, if it doesn't exist, it isn't known to the Pueblo people. So what happens is right up around the middle Rio Grande Valley, an Indian guide takes the Spaniards on a journey to see if they could find what they're looking for. His name was Bigotes, a Spanish word which means bigotes, facial hair. This was a Native American who probably had that rare situation of having hair on his face, and so the Spaniards called him Bigotes. And they go on another adventure northeast of New Mexico through the plains and into what's now Kansas. That's how far they go. It's an ocean of grass and rolling hills. In the records, they say that it was difficult to tell which direction was which, especially when the sun was overhead. And ultimately, they plant wooden crosses to guide themselves, like you see in the movies where people drop popcorn or something when they're going into the jungles or something so they could find their way back. Well, that's what the Spaniards do. And right around what's present-day Kansas, they had enough. They did not find cities of gold in that direction. And so they kill poor Bigotes, and he's dead. And that's the end of him. The Spaniards make their way back to what's now the Rio Grande Valley. And Coronado's, as you can imagine, he's pretty anxious. I mean, you have to remember, as I've said before, these were quasi-capitalists. They weren't just soldiers. But they were more than that. It's not like the crown just bestowed money on them and said, here, go do what you want, find whatever you can and come back. Coronado was a wealthy man who invested a lot of money. And it was an agreement between Coronado and the crown, much like what Christopher Columbus had. And so things were not going well. He dispatches a soldier, Garcia Lopez de Cardenas, to go west to see if maybe there's something out there. And Garcia and his soldiers go as far as the Grand Canyon. In fact, they're the first Europeans to see the Grand Canyon, and they were in awe of it, as you can imagine. They said it was several giraldas deep. A giralda is the Moorish minaret alongside the cathedral in Sevilla. That back then was considered a skyscraper, a tall edifice. So they were quite in awe. And you could say that's when tourism in Arizona started in 1540. But no, they don't find any cities of gold. But what they do find is a really good idea of what is up in this part of the world, the lay of the land. And what ends up happening is they all end up back in New Mexico, particularly in the community known as Tigüe. Tigüe was a few towns that were situated around what's now Bernalillo and North Albuquerque. And this is where this community was. And so the Spaniards, they try once again to see if there's any gold or silver or anything worth their while. And they don't find it. They find well-ordered towns, pueblos. The Spanish word for a town is a pueblo. It also means people or population, pueblo. And the Spaniards are quite impressed. The Pueblo people have well-ordered communities and towns. They have a society that is respectful of the elderly. They have their own religious systems with kivas. The Spanish Catholics, though, are quite suspicious of those. They call them estufas, ovens, or even sometimes mezquitas, mosques, reminiscent of their grandfathers fighting the Moorish wars in Spain. And they find them cultivating beans and squash and corn. They have agriculture, but the Pueblos at this point really don't have anything to offer these high-minded businessmen, soldiers. And so they finally leave 2 years later, 1542, but not before killing and butchering some of the Pueblo people in the Tigüe area by burning them alive. And this is a catastrophe, as you can imagine. It leaves a very bad taste in the mouths of the Pueblo people when it comes to Spanish people. Coronado and his expedition leave. They head south. But they do leave three priests. Three priests remain to try to convert the Pueblo people in the area to Roman Catholicism. And once the Spanish soldiers are gone, as you can imagine, those three priests were killed on the spot. They were martyred. That marks the end of Spanish presence in New Mexico at that time, 1542. This was an expedition of exploration, not colonization. There were no settlements established by Spanish people. No Spanish remained to found families or anything like that. In fact, it will be about 2 generations before Spain will take another look at New Mexico and send a colonizing expedition. Keep in mind, there will be entradas into New Mexico over the next few decades. These are entrances or expeditions, and some of them legal, some of them illegal. I'll talk about that next time, and then we will start to get into the Oñate expedition of 1598. See you next time. Hasta pronto.